we are the members of R.A.E.N Tech, and we are overjoyed to have all of you here with us today. Before we begin to introduce ourselves, we'd like to thank all of you in attendance, especially our advisors, Mr. Scott Wiedemann, Mr. Calvin Hicks, Mr. Matt Micah, Mr. Kenneth Sarnowski, and our Senior Projects Advisor, Mr. Robert Combs. We really appreciate everything you've done for us this past year, and in Mr. Sarnowski's case, these last 4 as well. Yes, we'll do that.
Okay, hi everyone, my name is Raisa. I went to Rollick Hills Elementary and Falcon Creek Teacher Computer to Grandview. Some of the classes that I've taken include intern programming, AP Computer Science A, and principles. I'm also a co-president of Cyber Patriot, which is a cybersecurity competition where teams compete to secure images in Windows and Linux systems, as well as Cisco Net. I'm also a competitor in the Girls Go Cyber Start competition. I also play tennis, as you can see in the picture. I'm also a co-president of the Spanish Honor Society, as well as a member of NHS. And this coming fall, I will be attending Stanford majoring in computer science.
Thank you, Risa. I'm Anushka. I went to Barrett Wanamaker Homestead at Fox Hollow Elementary School and Liberty Middle School. Next year, I'll be a member of the 2019 cohort of the President's Leadership class at the University of Colorado Boulder, majoring in computer science and minoring in leadership program. Grandview is really where I had my first wholehearted introduction to STEM education, through intern programming, AP Computer Science A, and AP Computer Science P. I also served as vice president and co-president of Cyber Patriot, along with Risa, and competed in Girls Go Cyber Start, a cybersecurity competition in which our team took second in state, won about $1,000 for the Cyber Patriot pizza budget, and were honored by the Governor's Office of Information Technology. I was also recently named a National Center for Women in Information Technology, a Colorado Affiliate Award winner. Outside of the STEM wing at Grandview, I have served as captain of the speech and debate team, president of Key Club, president of Future Business Leaders of America, and an assistant dance teacher at a nonprofit dance studio in Denver.
Hi, I'm Inky. Freshman year, I transferred from the Oro Public School District to come to Grandview. As an underclassman, I took Intro to Programming and Technology Education 1, and last year I also took AP Computer Science A. Along with Bryce and Anushka, I was also a vice president and co-president of Cyber Patriots and participated in the Cyber Start competition with them. Like Anushka, I was also honored by the NCWIT Colorado affiliate as an honorable mention for these past 2 years. Aside from my STEM-related activities, I also participate in FBLA, National Honor Society, play volleyball and golf at Grandview. This upcoming fall, I plan on attending and playing volleyball at Stevens Institute of Technology.
Hi, my name is Lenore. I also attended Rolling Hills Elementary and Middle School in Risa. Other than Cyber Patriot, I have more past experience with technology. My other clubs I have been in high school have been FBLA, NHS, Spanish Honor Society. I'm the webmaster of Key Club, and I also participate in golf and next fall, I will be attending Colorado School of Mines.
So as you can probably tell from our actually very condensed bios, we have been busy bees in high school. And one of the most difficult things for us to do these past 4 years was staying organized when we had clubs and sports and other extracurriculars and 1,000 AP classes and everything else happening at once. So when we were coming up with ideas for our project, Risa said, hey, why don't we make an app for that? And thus, R.A.E.N Productivity, our organization and productivity enhancement app, was born. Our plan consisted of 4 main components: a user interface, of course, memos for the user to use, of course, and augmented sticky notes with location association, as well as a smart agenda. Going into this ambitious, to say the least, project, we hope to learn some advanced concepts and challenge ourselves, hopefully keeping that senioritis at bay for as long as possible, because that is definitely real.
For our project, all the technology we used was on our computers. The 2 main programs we used were Android Studios and GitHub, because we use those to not only code our own components, but to bring them all together at the end. For Risa and Anushka, they used AR Core, Sceneform, and GameSparks to work on the augmented reality component. We all decided to take this class because it was a really good learning opportunity overall. Many of us have had past coding experience and Northern came in with none. Good job. And we wanted to expand on all our coding and programming knowledge. In addition to that, we wanted to learn how to work as a group. That can be difficult to organize at times, so this was really good in managing for all of that. In addition to that, because we do have presentations, we wanted to become better public speakers, so this class was really helpful for them.
For our logo, we wanted to incorporate all of us, so we took the first initial of all our names to create R.A.E.N. And that connotes a coolness and freshness that we put in our app. It makes the user have more usability. So the app logo has an agenda and a hand to show the convenience of our app. Is that users like?
Alright, so since we're tackling such a complex project, we need a lot of help along the way. So this is where our advisors came in. Our first expert advisor is Mr. Scott Lieberman. He helped us with machine learning and Android app development. He is a graduate of the Colorado School of Mines and he is currently a software engineer at Bit Systems working with both Android and Apple projects. Our next expert advisor is Mr. Calvin Hicks. He also helped us with our Android app development. He is currently a full-stack web and Android developer at Cigna Health Insurance. Our first support advisor is Mr. Matt Micah. He also helped us with our app development. He is currently a lead architect at Justin's Navigation Solutions portfolio. Our next support advisor is a former Grandview student, Avery Smith. He helped us with Android app development as well, and he's currently up at UPenn. And then finally, our last support advisor is a computer science teacher, Mr. Sarnowski. He was there for our moral support.
So my component of the project was the user interface and speech-to-text models. I first started the project with research. I found courses on Udacity that helped me learn about code in XML and Java. In the XML portion, I mainly focused on buttons and the layout that would help me in the project. In the Java portion, I focused on button functionality and calling the other pages that would help my teammates integrate their projects into the user interface. For the memos, I wanted it to be simple and easy for the users to use. So I just added an add and save button, and we were able to edit or delete the memo once they are created. Once I hit when we made Android Studios, I had a lot of errors in coding, which is to be expected as I'm new to coding. But I think Android Studios actually helped me a lot to develop my coding more because it told me that this is wrong and I need to fix it. So I was able to understand more of what is the right type of coding and the right fit for the updating. So once I got into Android Studios, I started creating the basic design, and I thought it would be a good idea to update Android Studios. But after I updated it, it freaked out and said all my code was basically wrong, and it took a lot of time. And I just decided to create a new project within Android Studios, and I took the old learning and code that I had and implemented it to the new project. Also, I had another trouble with Android Studios with the emulator. I didn't have any Java code into the buttons part yet, but when I looked at the emulator and clicked on the buttons, it would exit the app, and that really freaked me out, and I was like trying to figure it out, and it took a lot of my time, but once I added the code for the Java functionality, it went away. Also, I was supposed to do speech-to-text memos, and I found a really good library that had a lot of reviews, and it was really well. It was simple. However, I implemented it into Android Studios, and it just didn't work well with my coding, and it just freaked out. There were so many errors, so I had to get rid of that version. My version progress, I first made a design and I sketched it and I showed it to my teammates. And so we looked at the different functions, and we decided that there was a lot that we wanted to do, but we might not be able to. So I took my talks with my teammates, and I made a simple design. Then I used a simple design to further the progress. The start with UI. I added our Roadblocks and checkmark, and I also made the memo buttons and the agenda buttons smaller to make it more aesthetically pleasing. For my timeline, I was pretty on track, except for the times I said that I would be working on speech to text. I didn't because it definitely took a backseat in my project because I wanted to have a user interface that my teams would be able to integrate with, and it was more important for me to learn the coding aspect of the user interface than the speech to text aspect. So it definitely took a backseat, and I wasn't able to get to it until January this year. I did research, but it just didn't work out, as I said before. I started working on the user interface in late November and early December, and I worked until February. There was room in the project or the timeline from February to March as a leeway to make sure that we actually got our project finished. So in the end, I did stick on it.
Okay, so for my component of the app, I worked on the Smart Agenda. The Smart Agenda was essentially supposed to be a calendar with features that sort the events and allow for reminders based on whether it was an outdoor or an indoor event. Here I have my timeline. I had initially planned on finishing all of my research in September and beginning all of my code by November. Unfortunately, there was a lot more research than I had expected, so I ended up doing research all of first semester and even a little into second semester. For my first part of the research, I primarily focused on anything related to Android studios. Like Nor said, we worked with Java and XML. So an activity is basically what you will see on the actual app on the phone, and XML worked on the layout and the visible parts, whereas the Java was the actual code and functioning behind it. In addition to that, I looked into preferences. This is what you chose to save your data in. Out of all these options, I chose to use a database because it allowed me to not only save complex data points, but multiple data points, and that was very helpful. I also looked into background tasks for a little bit just because if I had gone to the event sorting and reminder piece, it would have been running behind the app just to sort all the events into indoor and outdoor and say, oh, you need to leave at a certain time or change or give weather updates. Also looked into machine learning. This is the sorting part of the app. There were many different methods to look at, so this took a bulk of my research. And in the end, if I had gotten to it, I would have chosen to use a decision tree. As you can see in the diagram, there's X's and O's, and that's what the data points would have been. And it takes all your data and sorts it based on a given variable or feature. So I would have given it like indoor or outdoor, and it would have sorted it based on that. These next two slides will show my agenda designs. I have 4 different layouts: daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly. So here's another version of it. And in the end, here's my final product. I decided to use only a monthly layout because having different layouts was a lot more difficult than I thought it was. I thought it would be just easy, like, oh, here's a daily, change it, but that's not the case. So I chose to do a monthly layout so you could see it better and plan out for more. And then once you select a date, you can type it in as shown, save it, and when you view the event, it will tell you where it was. And the first 2 images I will refer to as the main activity, and the last picture was what the event list activity was. So now I have my code for the main activity. Here I just have a few variables at the top, and they were used throughout the rest of it. This just allows me to assign certain values or certain points from the layout code, and that's all this code was. Here is more of the important code. The 2 set on click listener methods allow me to click on the button and do different things based on it. The first one simply allowed me to add my data and call a different method as shown at the bottom. And then the second one allowed me to open the event list activity. Here I have my database helper code. As I said, I decided to save all my data into a database, and the first 2 methods, onCreate and onUpgrade, only simply allow me to create a table if needed or update it every time I add data points. The Boolean add data, so if you are unfamiliar with coding, Boolean returns a true or false based on what you're asking it. Here I just insert data, and if the data had inserted properly, it would tell me true or false, and it would tell me in the other activity if it entered. And then the bottom one is simply just to pull out data points in the event list activity. So as I said, my research took up a lot more than I expected, so my timeline became completely changed. I didn't finish my research until January, and I began my coding in February, so time constraint was very difficult for me, I guess. And fortunately, I got to finish it, and I worked on coding all through February to April and integrated with my team. As you will hear from all of us, Android Studios was one of the main roadblocks I had. Of course, there were times I messed up and it caused Android Studios to give me the errors, but here I would save an event and the app would stop working. And I was very frustrated, I wasn't sure what was wrong with my code. I had looked at every tutorial and it kept telling me the same thing, I was doing it properly. Turned out it was not my issue, it was the emulator on the Android Studios, it wasn't working. So when we tested it on Rice's phone, it was actually working, and I had been trying to figure out why this hadn't been working, but it had been fine the whole entire time.
Thank you, Nikki. I worked out the augmented reality sticky notes portion of the project. Early on, I discovered Google's AR Core software development kit, an SDK that immensely reduced the amount of extra learning I had to do. This little dragon dude here demonstrates how it handles light estimation with these shadows, environmental understanding, and motion tracking for the developer. AR Core also streamlines the creation of anchor points and feature points. Anchor points being the spots where the object is placed, and feature points being unique reference points in the environment, so that everything kind of stays together, making development and use far more straightforward. The Google Sceneform plugin also immensely reduced the amount of extra learning I had to do. It kept me from having to learn 2 or 3 other development languages for my augmented reality component. It creates what are called model renderables, which are 3D objects built and attached to a node at runtime. This is my super complex model renderable. I kid, but it caused me a lot of problems this year. It's deceptively simple. As for roadblocks, as Inky and Noor mentioned, Android Studio was one of the biggest ones. I encountered issues with version compatibility, updates that deprecated methods that I wanted to use, and issues with storage, even though I deleted everything off my H drive. This is one example of the issues that I had with Android Studio. What happened here is that I moved a file from its original location and then moved it back, but one of my imports was declared invalid, and my class was rendered completely useless. I looked for solutions online, but all I could find was that as of June 2018, Google was working on it. And I checked last week, and Google is still working on it. So that lack of support online and also my inexperience with Android Studio really caused a lot of problems this year. So in terms of solutions, I started that and a couple other projects with similar issues where I couldn't find online solutions and I didn't know how to fix it over. But that isn't to cast all the blame on Android Studio, because it is usually my fault. This, for example, is version 3 of my component. Obviously, it's not a sticky note, but what happened in an earlier version was that it was throwing errors that led me to believe that my sticky note renderable was the issue. So I used a sample project's renderable, which ended up being this Andy that I knew worked, and put it in my project. And it worked, so I was able to pinpoint the source of these issues to my renderable. I then compared the object and texture files for this Andy renderable and my sticky note object, and found out that I was missing a key texture file. And it was really nice that the solution for this was really simple, because most of the solutions for these kinds of issues are not. What I did was I Googled yellow background, saved it as a PNG, put it in my data file, and set my attribute for the object to that yellow file. And it was really simple. It was a super easy solution, and I had didn't have that many easy solutions in the past, so that was really nice. But the most helpful solution, however, has been a virtue that I do not have, patience, but my teammates really do. Watching them overcome these issues and obstacles like that we had no experience with and handle them so gracefully was honestly inspirational. So thank you guys for being the coolest teammates and making this year really great. With that, let's go on to my components version progress. This is version 1. What happened here is that it works, but what happened in the emulator, Android Studio provides a virtual phone that you can test your apps on. It would take one of 2 valid planes in the emulator and just place a sticky note there, which is fine because that works, but it isn't really what I wanted it to do. Version 2 is the one with the renderable issue I mentioned earlier, but I still include it as a version because I got some plane detection stuff working, which was really nice. Version 3 is the Andy I mentioned before. The user is able to click on the icon for the renderable and place it in the environment when flying a valid plane. And of course it works, but it isn't a solution, which leads us to my final component. The user is able to click on this sticky note icon and place the sticky note in the environment when it finds a valid plane. This is working in the emulator in front of my workstation and next to Danny Ripkin. You'll be able to see this app, the integrated app, in its entirety with our proof of concept video at the end. As for my timeline, I won't go into too much detail for time's sake, but I was on track the entire year because my initial timeline was really vague because I didn't know what I would find. So when it came to timing and roadblocks, I had significant leeways because I wasn't technically hindered by my roadblocks from before.
Alright, so for my component, I worked with the GameSparks database as well as the location associated with our students. Okay, so one of my top priorities for this project was to increase the accuracy of the location that we were getting, since our app was designed to work on a small scale within the room. So even if you're off by a decimal in your GPS coordinates, your sticky note might fly from one side of the room all the way to another. So what I focused on was the built-in accesses for the location in the Android, and the 2 options, access course location and access file location. Access course location uses a network provider, which uses cell tower signals and Wi-Fi signals to locate the user. While this is usually more responsive and uses less battery power, it is also less accurate. The second option, access file location, uses both a GPS and a network provider to find the most accurate location. However, this does use more battery power. I ended up choosing access file location because of its accuracy. Next, another aspect of the location management was calculating the distance between the phone and the sticky note so that I could get the GPS coordinates of the sticky note itself. So this was one of the formulas I found, which is ratios between the actual heights in millimeters and the pixel heights, as well as the focal length of the camera to calculate the distance. During my research, I stumbled across a simple project that looked a lot like the final product that we wanted to achieve. This simple project used Unity, a cross-platform game engine, Mapbox, a location data platform, and GameSparks, a database located in the cloud, which leads me to the next part of my research. So for the database, I initially started following along with the sample project's connection between Unity and GameSparks before converting over to just Android Studio. How the GameSparks connection works is that my Android code will call something called an event, which triggers code in the GameSparks that either saves or reloads data. Below you can see is my code for my save event, which takes your latitude and longitude coordinates as well as the text that you entered and sends this over to the database. So what I wanted to do with the information in my database was to pull up the sticky notes that were close to the user instead of loading every single sticky note all the time. So the process that I wanted to follow was to first get the user's location, then draw a rectangle around the user using GPS coordinates, and then finally pulling up all the sticky notes located within this rectangle. To help me with this, I researched geolocation libraries or pre-made sets of code that would help me draw the shape around the user. I ended up researching 3 of them, Spatial 4J, Apache 6, and JT a topology suite. I ended up choosing JTS as my final library because of its efficient way in detecting whether or not a point was located within a polygon. Unfortunately, I was not able to implement this into my code because of roadblocks I ran into with the app itself. So one of the problems that I ran into with Unity is that there is a very roundabout way to access your phone's camera. So this ended up creating a lot of lag in the app. Another problem that I ran into is that when I converted my Unity project to an Android Studio project, the generated code would give me a very clear way to access the text that the user is entering to put onto the studio. So for these reasons, I ended up shifting from Unity to just Unity Studio. As for GameSparks, one of the difficulties that I ran into was when I initialized the connection between my Android Studio code and my GameSparks database, the live mode feature was set to off, which essentially blocks the keyboard from showing up so the user can even type in their text. My solution was to create an introductory page that would initialize the GameSparks connection and then bring the user to the page where they can enter their text. And then finally, I also had problems with Android Studios and deprecated methods as my teammates had mentioned before. Just to summarize my first semester timeline, I was able to complete my research for my 3 geolocation libraries, as well as access the user's location. I was also able to create a working GameSparks database. So this slide shows the working products that I had in Unity before I switched over to Android. In the middle is a test that I ran. It looks like kind of a mess, but I was actually very excited to see this because it meant that my GameSparks connection was actually working and was pulling the different messages that I had saved into the database, although it did load all the message bubbles on top of each other. This is a sample database entry that I had working in GameSparks. It saves the latitude and longitude coordinates of the phone, as well as the text that I had entered. For second semester, our team had to push back integration because our components were taking longer than we had expected. As for me, I worked on the camera issues I was having with Unity before converting over to Android Studio. I also researched the algorithm of work calculating distance, although I did not get time to implement it in my code. In March and April, I was able to integrate with the entire team, as well as create code that would pass my database contents over to Anushka's added synchronous component so that she could use them. And this is my final working products for Android. On the left is kind of a rough draft that I had of where the user would enter text and submit the button. In the middle is where I was having problems with the keyboard showing up, but I was able to successfully merge with Anushka's sticky note component, as you can see there. And then on the right is where I was finally able to get the keyboard to show up. Alright, so for our integration process, we used a website called GitHub, which hosted our code so that we could access it from anywhere. This website also helped us keep track of changes, as well as pull and merge code from we had 5 different branches. The first one is the master branch, which contains the stable final working version of our app. And then we had 4 other branches, one for each of the team members, where we would do our individual app development and then combine them into one working app.
This is our final product. We'll be going through a walkthrough of how our app works. Unfortunately, we didn't get the message to show up on the sticky note renderable, even though we did make progress on that. I take all of the blame for that because I misjudged how long integration would take. So here we're entering a memo into Nora's component of the app. Next, we're opening up the sticky note, typing in the message that should be showing up on the renderable, but it does not. AR4 looks for a valid plane. These little dots show up and the pointer turns green, and then you can see a little sticky note that pops up. We're going to the agenda. using today for a little reminder that we have our final presentation. And that is saved to Inky's SQL database, which we will be able to see in a second. All right. If you'd like to see more of the app in action and see it on our phones, please come visit our table. But aside from that, that concludes our presentation. Does anyone have any questions? Julian.
So what's like the next step moving forward? Is this going to stay as like an app production?
So we were thinking if we were able to get the different components working, we can actually add the text onto the signal, as well as machine learning into smart agenda and sending you weather updates if your event is outdoors. Then maybe we could put it on a Play Store, but right now it's kind of an unfinished product. So.
Any other questions? Mr. Russ?
What would you change about your integration timeline planning besides more time? What thoughts do you have on that?
We had some issues when we were merging things because a lot of our classes and contents and files and all were named the same thing. So when we were making those components of our app, we would change that for sure. So you're going to add. No. So that would be one of the biggest things because that took a significant chunk of time just going through all of our files and making sure we didn't have any duplicates.
So in the future, if you were to do this, you would have to almost be way up in the front of this, making sure you're naming things differently.
Sorry?
So in the beginning, you would have to be more planned out to where things would be named differently. You'd have to really have that communication down so you don't get to the end and realize we did all the same things.
For sure.
Okay. Good. Other questions?